The first time they ran over my mailbox, I thought it was a drunk driver. The second time, I thought it was a prank. But by the third time, when a so-called HOA cop aimed his SUV like a wrecking ball, I realized this wasn't an accident. It was a war. And they had no idea who they were messing with. When I bought the ranch house at the edge of Clearwater Meadows, I believed I'd finally found peace. After 2 decades in law enforcement and a bitter divorce, I was ready for quiet mornings, starlit evenings, and land I could finally call mine. The property wasn't much, just a 3-acre lot with a red barn, a creaky porch swing, and a wide gravel road leading down to my wooden mailbox at the edge of the community line. But to me, it was paradise. That feeling lasted about 3 weeks. The first time my mailbox was knocked over, I thought it was an accident. Maybe a careless delivery truck took the turn too wide, or a neighbor's kid clipped it while learning to drive. I brushed off the annoyance and spent a Saturday replacing it with a sturdier post, anchoring it a little deeper into the ground. This time, no big deal, but less than 5 days later, I woke up to find the mailbox flattened again. The post was snapped clean in half, and the box was lying 20 feet down the ditch, crushed like a beer can. This wasn't bad luck. This was deliberate. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I asked around the neighborhood, visited a couple of homes nearby, and even left a handwritten note by the roadside offering no questions asked forgiveness if someone came forward. No one did. So I replaced the mailbox again, this time with treated lumber, steel brackets, and concrete reinforcement. I was starting to get the feeling I'd need it. Then came the camera. I mounted a basic trail cam on the nearest tree, just in case. What I caught that week changed everything. It was around 2:37 a.m. on a Wednesday when a white Ford Explorer rolled down the private road. It had a magnetic HOA patrol sticker on the side, half off, barely stuck on straight. The driver didn't slow down, didn't swerve. He aimed. He aimed for my mailbox and slammed straight into it like he was bowling for dollars. The car didn't even stop, just kept driving, dragging the splintered wood until it finally flopped loose in the ditch. I rewound the footage, stunned. This wasn't random vandalism. This was the HOA. Or more specifically, someone using the HOA like their personal wrecking crew. I showed the video at the next community meeting. That's where I met her, Karen Delaney. HOA president, community tyrant, and self-appointed guardian of neighborhood standards. She sat at the head of the table in a salmon pink sweater, oversized sunglasses propped on her head like a crown, flanked by 2 men in cheap suits who looked like they got their law degrees from Facebook. When I played the footage, the room fell quiet. Karen leaned forward, squinted, then sat back with a smirk. That video proves nothing, she said. Could have been anyone. And your mailbox is too close to the access road. It's not up to community code. That's private land, I countered. I checked the plats. It's within my boundary line. You have no jurisdiction over my driveway entrance. She waved me off like I was a child explaining dinosaurs. Then perhaps you should file a complaint with our property board. Until then, any hazards to community safety can be removed. That includes obstructions like that. That? I echoed, jaw tight. That's federal property. It's a mailbox. You destroy that, and you're tampering with government infrastructure. Then file a report, she said sweetly. I'm sure the police will rush to help with your little mailbox. I did file a report. The sheriff's deputy took my statement, glanced at the footage, then sighed like he'd been through this dance a dozen times. You're not the first, he said. But the HOA contracts their own patrol and attorneys. It's tricky jurisdiction. Can't you do anything? He shrugged. It's a mailbox. And that's when I knew I was on my own. The next 2 weeks were an escalation. I replaced the mailbox again, only to find it torn from its bolts and run over twice. I tried calling the HOA's office, but I was put on hold endlessly or routed to voicemail boxes that were always full. I even got a letter, a fine, citing me for obstruction of the shared vehicle route and threatening additional fees if I did not relocate the hazardous fixture. That's when I stopped getting angry and started getting creative. I sat on my porch with Buddy, my old German Shepherd, sipping black coffee and watching the road. You ever hear of a mailbox hitting back? I muttered to him, his tail thumped. In agreement. I took out a notepad and started sketching. It wouldn't be illegal. It wouldn't have explosives, spikes, or anything stupid. But it would be solid. So solid that anyone who tried to mess with it would walk away regretting their entire morning. I'd build it smarter, deeper, tougher. And when the HOA patrol made their usual pass, they'd get a surprise, one they wouldn't forget. The war had started, but this time, I wouldn't be the one picking up pieces. The next morning, I drove to the nearest hardware supply store with a plan in my mind and grit in my heart. If they were going to treat my property like a playground, then I was going to turn my mailbox into a fortress, not a weapon, but a statement. I wasn't going to stoop to their level. I wasn't going to retaliate with threats or broken laws. I was going to beat them at their own game, legally, smartly, and with every ounce of country engineering I had left in me. I started with a steel core, a 6-inch thick, hollow pipe, rated for highway guardrails. I had to special order it and wait 4 days for it to arrive. While I waited, I poured a new concrete base into the ground, 3 feet deep and as wide as an oil drum. I used rebar, mesh, gravel, the works. On top of that, I anchored the pipe using 4 industrial-grade bolts that could survive an earthquake. Once that sucker was in the ground, it wasn't going anywhere, but I wasn't done. To the casual eye, it looked like a normal wooden post. I carefully wrapped the metal pipe in reclaimed wood siding, stained it to match the previous posts, and mounted a classic curved mailbox on top, red flag and all. From the road, it looked rustic, ordinary, harmless. Only I knew the truth. Beneath that quaint little box was 400 pounds of anchored, reinforced steel, the kind of thing that could stop a tank in its tracks. Buddy watched me from the porch the entire time, tail wagging as I tightened bolts and leveled the ground. It felt good to build something with my hands again. It felt even better knowing that the next person who tried to knock it over would be in for one hell of a surprise, and I didn't have to wait long. 3 nights later, around 2 a.m., I heard the familiar low rumble of tires on gravel. I didn't even have to check the cameras. I slipped quietly out the front door and stood on the edge of the porch, hidden by shadows, Buddy silent beside me. The white Ford Explorer came into view, creeping down the road with its high beams off. Like that made them less visible. Same old beat-up vehicle. Same dented fender. Same magnetic HOA patrol sign hanging half off the door. I recognized the driver now, a guy in his 30s, always chewing gum, always with a smug look like he knew he could do anything without consequences. He didn't slow down, didn't hesitate. He gunned it, the front of the truck lined up with my mailbox like a missile to target. And then, BAM. It sounded like a shotgun blast, metal against steel. The mailbox didn't even flinch. The truck. Not so lucky, the front bumper folded like paper. The hood crumpled. I heard the engine sputter and the unmistakable hiss of steam erupting from the radiator. The impact had stopped the entire vehicle cold, like it hit a concrete wall. The driver stumbled out, holding his wrist and cursing loudly. He looked back at the mailbox, expecting it to be lying in pieces like before, but there it stood. Untouched. Gleaming slightly in the moonlight. Indestructible. He didn't notice me on the porch, but Karen did. 2 minutes later, her silver Lexus screeched to a halt next to the crumpled patrol truck. She stepped out in a velvet robe and furry slippers, hair tied up in a pink satin scarf. The flashlight in her hand flailed around like a lighthouse beam as she stormed toward my property line. "You think this is funny?" she shouted, pointing at the mangled patrol car. I stayed calm. "Not funny. Satisfying. You rigged that thing. It's a hazard." "You can't, it's within code," I said flatly. 4 feet off the road, federal approved height, post within boundary. I even sent photos to the local USPS inspector. She froze. I let that sink in, then added, "Sheriff's already seen the footage. And the structure. It's not a trap. It's just unbreakable." She turned bright red, fists clenched at her sides. "This is sabotage. You'll hear from our lawyer. Tell him I'll be waiting." I walked back inside, calm and collected. Buddy barked once, not aggressively, just approvingly. The mailbox stood outside like a sentinel. By the next morning, word had spread across the neighborhood. Some folks knocked on my door just to shake my hand. Others left notes in my mailbox congratulating me on the legendary engineering. One guy even offered me money to build him one just like it. Karen, on the other hand, wasn't done. I received an official notice from the HOA demanding that I remove the mailbox within 72 hours or face daily fines exceeding $500. I sent back my own letter-certified mail with a full structural report, photographs, USPS verification, and a copy of the local municipal code proving the mailbox was 100% legal. They never responded. Instead, the patrol truck was quietly removed from the road, replaced with a security company on bicycles, and my mailbox, it still stands. Every morning I walk down with Buddy and open it like a small act of victory. The red flag still works. The door still swings open with a little squeak. It's just a mailbox. But for me, it's also a symbol of resilience, of defiance, and of not letting bullies win. They wanted to destroy me one mailbox at a time. But they didn't count on me building one that fought back and won.